Alright, C4, so our math learning target for the day is I can decompose fractions as a sum of unit fractions using tape diagrams. So our key words there are decompose, which means to break apart our fractions into a sum of unit fractions, and that's going to be our two really key words today. We're going to be talking about what is a unit fraction, and then we're going to be using tape diagrams, but we can also use other strategies like the number bond and addition sentences. So we're going to use those three strategies to solve and meet our learning target for the day. So to start, I'm going to use our tiles to break apart. You can draw tape diagrams, remembering it's super important to partition into equal groups. When we partition, it must be divided into equal parts. So I'm going to start with thirds. And I see that I have 3 thirds that take up the same amount of space or are equal to 1 whole. So 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 is equal to 1 whole. Now, unit fraction, like I said, is our key vocabulary word for today. A unit fraction is any fraction with a numerator with a 1. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. A unit fraction is a fraction with any numerator, a numerator that has a 1. Any fraction that has a numerator is a 1. So our addition sentence for 1 whole and 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 can be this: 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, because we have 3 1/3s, is equal to 3 thirds. We have 3 1/3s, so 3 thirds. And we remember that 3 thirds is equal to 1 whole, because any fraction in which the numerator is the same as the denominator means that it is a whole number. It is equal to 1. So if this was 4/4, it would also be equal to 1 whole. Now we can show this thinking in different ways. We can draw a tape diagram like I said before, remembering to partition into equal groups. We can draw a number bond. So each one of these, before we draw that number bond, each one of these squares in our tape diagram is a unit fraction. And in this case, we have 1, 2, 3. So each one of these is 1/3. I'm going to say that again. Each one of these squares is a unit fraction. And we know that this is equal to 1/3, and this square is equal to 1/3, and this square is equal to 1/3. So our total, our whole fraction, would be 3 thirds. So I'm going to draw a number bond. My circle at the top is going to be my whole number. And then I've got 2 parts. Now I'm going to shade in 2 of these, which means that my first part is going to be 2 thirds, and my second part is going to be 1/3. Now if I were to add 2 thirds, the part that's shaded in, plus 1/3, the square that has nothing shaded in, we would get 3 thirds, or our total amount. Now our total amount, we can see, is 1 whole. So we can connect our tape diagram to our number bond. We can also remember that our tape diagram, just like before, we have that 1 whole. This whole tape diagram is equal to 1 whole. We can draw that line just like we were doing when we were using RDW for addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. These 2 down here are 2 parts. So if you need to remember that, you can always put the P next to our parts and our W next to our whole. I'm going to draw a different tape diagram this time. And I want you to think to yourself, what does this tape diagram represent? And I'm going to make sure that I am partitioning it or dividing it as equally as I possibly can. If I make a mistake, that's okay. I can just redraw it. So this is the tape diagram that I've drawn. I want you to think to yourself, what is each of these unit fractions? Each of these rectangles, what fraction does it represent? Well, just like before, when I saw that I had this whole tape diagram is equal to one whole. This whole tape diagram is equal to one whole. Just like before when our whole tape diagram was equal to one whole. We had 3 parts, so the unit fraction was 1/3. I can look over here and I see I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So my unit fraction is 1/4 because I have 4 total parts. So now I need to ask myself, how many of these fourths are shaded in? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shaded in. So shaded in equals 7/4. Now, one mistake that would be really easy to make, and we need to be careful, is noticing that in our tape diagram, each one of these is equal to, this is equal to one whole. So it's in fourths, it's not in eighths, even though there's 8 squares here. So that's why it's 7/4 is our fraction. Now we could say our tape diagram, we have 7/4 as our whole number. And our 2 parts, well, I can look at my first tape diagram. And in my first tape diagram, I have 1, 2, 3, 4/4 shaded in. So that's my first part. And my second part would be 1, 2, 3/4 that are shaded in. And that tells me that 4/4 plus 3/4, my 2 parts, is equal to 7/4. So I'm going to write that addition sentence too. 3/4 plus 4/4 is equal to 7/4. Again, we've used our 3 strategies. We've used a tape diagram, we've used an addition sentence, and we've used a number bond. So we need to use all 3 of these strategies today when solving for what the tape diagram represents. Now you might see 7/4 written out a little differently on your paper. One way you might see it, and we're going to practice this in a moment, is you might see it like this. I'm going to divide this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to keep drawing because I didn't divide it equally. 6, 7. And I'm going to shade in 7 again, because this is just a different way we can show it on the tape diagram. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to draw one more because I was a little bit off on my drawing, and that's okay. And now I'm going to look. It says that 1, 2, 3, 4 of these represents one whole. So not this whole tape diagram, just these 4 pieces represent one whole. And that tells me that it's still fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4 is equal to fourths. And I have 7 shaded in, meaning 7/4 are shaded in. That's what it shows me. So because this whole tape diagram isn't one whole, it's just these 4 parts, we're still thinking in fourths. Each one of these unit fractions is still fourths. So I want you to take a moment, and you can pause the video here to answer this first question. I want you to look at this tape diagram in front of you, and I want you to answer these 3 parts. 1, what is the unit fraction? What does each of these rectangles represent? 2, draw a number bond for it. And 3, write an addition sentence including the unit fraction that you found. What can be an addition sentence that matches your number bond and the unit fraction? So doing those 3 steps here on a blank piece of paper, making sure that your name is on it. Take a moment to do that. And again, you can pause the video here. I'm going to show you the second problem that I would like you to solve. I expect to see both of these problems filled in on a blank piece of paper. So you can number this one 1. To match the tape diagram, again, I want to see a unit fraction, a number bond, and an addition sentence. And then I would like you to do the exact same thing for this tape diagram. So again, match the tape diagram. What is the unit fraction? What is a number bond that matches this tape diagram? And what is an addition sentence that matches this tape diagram? Again, if you need to pause this video or rewatch it, feel free to. If you have any questions or you're confused, you can come join my group. So I expect both of these to be solved on a blank piece of paper before you go to the worksheet.